I'm going to talk about hormone optimization a bit, and then I'm going to get into the horrible song for today, which I'm sure is the real reason why you're looking at this story. So when we look at hormones, as I discussed last time, we want to optimize the master control hormones. Those are the most prominent, paramount ones to focus on. I talked about leptin last time. The other important master control hormone is insulin. Insulin is the most anabolic hormone in the body. So if you're trying to improve strength and build muscle and reduce body fat, you have to optimize insulin. If you have insulin resistance, it's also going to have a negative impact on other hormones. You're going to have lower testosterone, you're going to have higher cortisol levels, your growth hormone levels are going to be depleted as well, because there's an inverse relationship between insulin and growth hormone. Now, the key is not to produce a lot of insulin. During the 90s and maybe early 2000s, a lot of companies, supplement companies, tried to sell these super high sugar protein powder post-workout supplements. First of all, you don't need anything post-workout in terms of nutrition. If you have a meal within 4 hours of eating, you're gonna get full recovery. So this whole window of opportunity where that hour after you train, you get in a bunch of carbs and protein is gonna just go right to your muscles. Yeah, it's gonna go right to your muscles and it's gonna spill over into body fat, because your muscles, cells, and liver are just like watering a plant. If I pour 1 cup of water into a plant, it's gonna absorb all of that. Now, if I pour 3 cups of water into it, it's still only going to absorb the equivalent of that 1. The rest is just going to be sitting up there. So nutrient spillover is the same way. Once insulin has driven nutrition into the muscles, the cells, and the liver, they're completely saturated. And it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to have 100 grams of sugar in a meal to drive that nutrition there. Just a modest amount of carbohydrates will get it there. Once that has been achieved, anything beyond that is just going to go to stored body fat. So it's amusing when someone does a 20-minute workout on, let's say, an elliptical machine or a treadmill, and then they have a post-workout shake. So you didn't do enough in that workout to justify. Most people don't train hard enough to justify a big post-workout meal. Let's just start right there. And if you're trying to lose body fat, you have a ton of body fat to go to for recovery. So your body's going to go to your stored body fat for energy to help recover from that workout. So you really don't need it then. Let hunger dictate when you eat. And, well, I mean, for some people, that's horrible advice because you're always hungry. If you have leptin resistance, you're always hungry. But ideally, you want to get to the point where hunger dictates when you eat. So when I train really hard, I'm not hungry afterwards, not immediately, because my body is in an inflammatory state. These anti-inflammatory hormones are kicking in and dealing with all the damage that was created during that workout. So the last thing I want to do is interrupt that process. Usually about an hour after training, I'm hungry. And that's when I know it's time for me to get some nutrition in. Immediately after, I'm not. So you want to get to the point where your hunger is so accurate, it dictates when things are going on. Now, the way to improve insulin sensitivity, because we're not trying to produce massive amounts of insulin. That's bad. That's how you get to insulin resistance. What we're trying to do is you want your pancreas to produce a small amount of insulin to drive all the nutrition to the muscles, cells, and livers. Moles, what am I talking about, Mickey? Muscle, cells, and liver. Now, taking longer stretches between meals definitely improves insulin sensitivity. Focusing on low glycemic carbohydrates improves it. Focusing on having all 3 macros at each meal and choosing macros that are very high in nutrition, very high in vitamins, minerals, polyphenols. So now you're getting a ton of nutrition in a relatively low amount of calories, as opposed to just focusing on macros where you're eating a lot of processed food, where you're getting a ton of macronutrients, but you're getting virtually no micronutrients, or in some cases too much of certain micronutrients such as iron. So you always want to focus on what is the nutritional value of what I'm consuming, and am I getting a good return? I'm going to expend energy to digest this food, to consume it. So what's it giving me in return? What most people eat, they're not getting anything in return. They're getting nothing. You go to fast food, you get McDonald's or some crap like that. You're getting absolutely zero nutrition that your body can thrive on, which is probably why you're going to be hungry an hour or 2 later, because you got nothing. Honestly, if you're hungry after eating a meal, let's say 2 hours after eating a meal, you're still hungry. Unless you trained super hard that day. After I used to teach seminars, I could go to a buffet, but unless it's some unusual circumstance like that, you didn't derive the nutrition from that food because your gut health is bad. I'll talk about that another time. Or you just ate a really crappy meal, which gave you no nutrition, so now your body's still starving. You ever wonder why you could eat a whole box of cereal? You could just keep going. You could have a whole box of cornflakes and still be hungry because there's no nutritional value in that. It's virtually none. It's just oral entertainment and not the fun kind. All right, well, I guess it can be fun. Otherwise, people wouldn't be addicted to such junk. All right, so longer stretches in between meals. Don't eat anything 2 hours before going to bed so that you improve insulin sensitivity, leptin sensitivity, you augment growth hormone testosterone while you're sleeping. And then there are a few supplements I like for improving insulin sensitivity. One is berberine, and berberine is commensurate with metformin, which is a popular diabetic drug, and actually it has some anti-aging properties to it as well. So metformin is not even a bad option, but berberine is a natural compound it has a very similar mechanism of action, and it's not gonna have the side effects such as gut health that often comes with metformin. So 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day with meals, especially high carbohydrate meals. And then oral lipoic acid is incredible. Whenever I take oral lipoic acid, I notice that I feel a little bit more pumped because it's just driving all that nutrition into the muscle cells and liver. It's great for what we call glucose disposal, which is making sure that glucose ends up in places that are useful rather than stored body fat. So oral lipoic acid and berberine taken together, that's a pretty cool combo. I may even make a supplement that has these 3 things that I'm talking about in it. And then the other one is apple cider vinegar. Now, this would be hard to put into a supplement, so maybe I take that back. But apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons, just put it in about 4 ounces of water and have it right before each meal. That will improve your post-meal glucose levels. It means it's not going to be as elevated as it normally would be because you're going to metabolize that glucose way more effectively than you would without it. And apple cider vinegar is also great for improving cholesterol levels. And that's inexpensive. You can get the Bragg brand, B-R-A-G-G brand. You can get that at Whole Foods or Vons. I see it everywhere. And that's a really good one. First thing in the morning, I like to take that with my lemon juice. And then before each meal, I'll have that. And sometimes before going to bed too, because I find that actually helps with deeper sleep, interestingly enough. Probably because it improves insulin sensitivity. Because when you have insulin resistance, that's going to have a negative impact on your sleep as well. So focus on that to get the most out of your workouts, improving insulin sensitivity and getting out of that insulin resistant state so that you're going to be in a conducive state to build muscle, reduce body fat, get stronger, feel healthier. That's the most important thing, is that you're going to be much healthier when your insulin sensitivity is on point. When you get blood work done, for fasting insulin, you want it to be below 5. And then for fasting glucose levels, 80 to 85 is actually a really good number. So when you get those, you're gonna notice that your physique composition is gonna improve dramatically when you're in that ideal state.